Hi everyone, Rina here. I'm going to do a bit of about the Purushartha. It's Vedic scriptures, and they're giving us a guideline how to find well-being on all levels. So eventually, obviously, there are spiritual scriptures. When you following them, so the idea is that you achieve moksha. The Purushartha has got four pillars. The first pillar is Dharma, which is the moral well-being. The second is Artha, financial well-being. Karma, sexual or spirit or emotional well-being. And then we've got Moksha, which is spiritual well-being. Okay, so within the Dharma is got four pillars. So the first pillar is truth and purity, then ahimsa, non-violence, and then we've got discipline. So the way I would recommend to work with that, and that's how I work, I run Purushartha online courses with small group of women, and we discuss that, is in a much more kind of feminine approach. Obviously, you know, most of the scriptures is written by men, and so the way I'm trying to work is kind of intuitively of how we can use that to make it relevant, first of all, for our modern lives, but also especially for women. Though I will run in the new year some days retreat which are for men also. Um, so basically, so let's just kind of go through a little bit with the Dharma, the first pillar. So with the Dharma, we've got the truth. So truth is basically, the way it's been explained is what is really going on. So it's not like the projection of our traumas and our past experiences, but actually what's going on right now, and not from our subconscious mind. And we know that we are about 95% of the time we're acting from our subconscious mind. So we keep creating this, what we call old patterns. So if we had, if one of our parents was not there for us emotionally, so we keep creating those relationships throughout our lives, right? So truth is in a way that we are able to see the way things are and not project the past or fantasize the what's going on right now. Sorry, the present, and we actually seeing things for the way they are right now. Okay, so that's the first pillar, which is truth. The second one is purity, and I like the idea that purity is anything that enlivens us, anything that nourishes us is pure. Things that deplete our energies are not pure. So if it's a way we think, if it's a thought that makes us feel depleted, then it's not nourishing us, then it's not pure. So the same thing, you can think about a movie that you watch. If this movie is like the best, I just had this discussion with a friend, that there is all this amazing directors with amazing cast, but actually I feel anxiety, I feel tired from all this excess of adrenaline in my body, right? So this is not pure. But if I sit down and I watch the river and I see kids running around and laughing, or one of my best friend telling me amazing news, that's pure, if it's uplifting you, if it's nourishing you. So that's a discussion. What I do in those Zoom meetings that we do, the Purushartha, and there's another one starting next week on Tuesday, November 6th, which is also the Diwali, the celebration of light. So for 8 weeks, we're working on those subjects and we're reflecting on that. We're using it as a form of inquiry, and we're writing and reflecting on our lives around those subjects. Okay. So you're more than welcome to join. Then we've got ahimsa, which is also mentioned in Patanjali Sutras. Non-violence can also mean it's not only not killing a bug or animal or being vegan, anything, but yes, definitely make sure that whatever you eat is being treated in the best way and most ethical way. When you buying a shirt, make sure that it hasn't been made by a woman somewhere in Asia that earn less than £1 a day. So of course, you want to kind of expand that, but you could also start within yourself. Are you being violent towards yourself? Are you being over judgmental, putting yourself down? Excuse me. Are you gossiping? Gossip is a form of violence, you know. So the opposite of violence is kindness and gentleness. So really the practice of ahimsa is gentleness, especially towards yourself. And then we've got the discipline. And discipline is so important, and we have such this word got such a bad reputation because we're coming from a society that's been kind of really telling us how to behave, and it was almost like being disciplined for things we didn't even believe in. Okay, so because the first pillar of Dharma is truth, so what is true for me? What I value? What's important for me? That's your truth. So the discipline is to that. And it's interesting that discipline comes from the word disciple. So you become a disciple of your truth, a disciple of purity, a disciple of kindness and gentleness. Okay? So you it's also coming from the Latin word of knowledge and learning. So you discipline, you learning, you are committed to what you honor and what you value. So then it's easy. So because if you are choosing things that enlivens you from purity, then you would want to do more of that. You will want to be disciplined with that. You will want to stick to that because that will make you feel. So those are the 4 pillars of Dharma, which is the first pillar of Purushartha. So the second pillar of the Purushartha is Artha, which is financial well-being. And so that's a concept that we actually just started to work on the first course of the Purushartha. And that's a very interesting subject because especially as spiritual practitioners, and I'm doing this because everything is spiritual in the way I see things. But a lot of the time we have this idea that if you have money, you're a bad person, or rich people are bad, or I don't care about money is a common one. But I'm sure you care because you need shelter, you need food, you need to take care of your well-being. And so when you're finding that place, then you can truly be in service of something greater than yourself because you're fed, you're nourished, and you can really spread nourishment and well-being all around you. But you can't do it, obviously, if you didn't find it yourself. And it's beautiful because Mama Teresa once said that in order to save the world, you need a checkbook. So it's something to think of. We do need to cover our basics and maybe even slightly more to be in service for others and feed others. So that's the second one that we're working on the Purushartha course. The third pillar of the Purushartha is Kama. You're probably familiar with Kama Sutra. Kama is the sexual and emotional well-being, and it's interesting that it comes together because a lot of the time we think about sexuality not very much connected to our feelings, or at least this is what our kind of sexual freedom made us think. I don't think it's freedom. I think it's actually really depleting. So again, there we also checking because really what we're looking for is connection. That's actually it's quite a powerful thing. No, the two becoming one in the sexual act. So it's very sacred. And so the idea is to really come into that place from that place of sacredness, sacred union. So this is what we're going to work around with the third pillars of what is really true safety within emotional and sexual relationships and how it can deepen using some pranayamas that can be useful for that. but also really investigating where we're feeling that we're being met and seen, and when we're feeling that we're being honored. And because it's all connected to our connection with spirit, this work, then we want that our relationship will be aligned with that. So when I'm in a relationship with someone, then they helping me to deepen my relationship with spirit and not sabotaging and moving me away from that. So the sexual union giving us the pleasure, and we're here also to experience pleasure. I mean, there's no mistake that there is, part of our body like the clitoris is giving us pleasure. We're supposed to feel pleasure. There's nothing wrong with that. It's not only for reproduction, but it needs to have also the emotional connection, the spiritual connection, and all the levels of that. But then we're also going to work on what is a sacred union. Is it really that I'm meeting someone that constantly taking me to see my traumas, or is it somebody that hold my hand while I'm going through my traumas and not taking it personally? So in a way, rather than playing it out on each other and each person taking it personally, we could just see it for what it is. See that it's the trauma, this 95% of the brain, the past, and we can really work on seeing the truth, the first pillar of Dharma, of what's happening right now. So the relationship is aligned with our spiritual work. And also a pleasurable one will be ideal. So finding the balance within all of that. Then we have the fourth pillar, which is Moksha. And a moksha is a spiritual well-being, and some teachers will describe it as enlightenment. It's not my favorite word because I think a lot of people have this connotation of you get to that state that you're in absolute peace and you're in total ananda with God or spirit. And I prefer to think about it as the realization that or it's kind of self-awareness, or what they call self-realization. So we are fully present with what's going on right now, which is very similar to the truth. The first pillar of the Dharma is that I see things for what they really are. And I see the darkness for what it is, and I see the light for what it is. And there's no attachment because they're going to keep changing. It's also kind of the end of illusion in a way. There's no, I'm not in illusion that it's all going to be always okay. There's maturity in it. Actually, there is, in the state of moksha, you're mature. You're mature that you're going to have to go through all the waves of life, and sometimes you're going to be knocked over, and sometimes you're going to surf it beautifully, and and it's going to be a lovely experience, but that will constantly change. So I would just look at moksha as a very mature spiritual state, with acceptance of what is. And so the Buddha was saying very beautifully that suffering ends when we accept things as they are. So I feel that this is the state of moksha, that we just accepting things for what they are. When they're tough, we just accept it. When we accept. Doesn't mean that you become passive always. There will be a time that you will know that it's time to take actions. Like some people feel in the world that, they really struggle with the way things are. So they can take action, but the action is not coming from anger. It comes from a state that this is what's happening, and I can come from a place of peace and say this is not on, this is not okay. So that's it, more or less. So obviously we're going to go really deep into the work with the Purushartha, and the next one start next week. So do join us. I mean, if you're seeing it later on in the year, always check there will be more. May you experience well-being on our level, on a moral level, on a physical, sexual, emotional level, on financial level, and on a spiritual level. Have a wonderful day. Lots of love. And see you very soon. Ciao.